Major League Baseball players are voicing their concerns about the owners' plan to restart the 2020 season. The league's owners have agreed to a plan that would include an 82-game season, played without fans in the stands, among other precautions. Right now, they're in negotiations with the players' union, but some players are worried about their safety. Others are raising red flags about how the owners want to split the revenue. David Samson is the host of CBS Sports podcast, Nothing Personal. He's also the former president of the Miami Marlins, and he joins us now. So, David, can you walk us through this? One of the big issues with this proposal is a legal question over how much each side believes that the players should get paid. You have a law degree. Can you explain this argument for us?
Well, there's a disagreement over an agreement that happened in March that was signed by the union and the owners, which says that the players would receive their prorated salaries dependent on the number of games played. So if you play half the games, then they would get half of what their salary would be. The players mistakenly thought that that was the end of the negotiation. There's a provision that states that if the owners believe there is not economic sustainable model, given that there will be no fans, then they get to talk about a possible pay reduction. And that's what's happening now, a discussion over what the pay cut really will be to the players once the season starts. But of course, all this assumes that you can get over the health hurdles.
I want to ask you about those health hurdles. What are the issues that the players have right now about making sure they're protected, especially in this era of coronavirus?
So the league sent a 67-page document to the players just today, and it had many of the things that I put in an article last week for CBSSports.com, because you have to think of every possible logistical issue in order to have spring training and then to have a regular season and a postseason. And where the players have a small misunderstanding, like a Blake Snell or a Bryce Harper, is that, of course, we don't want to have any sort of system where the players are not kept healthy, or the support staff, or the managers, or the coaches, or the front office. It's critical that we can have enough testing and contact tracing in order to make it safe for the players to come back and for us to have a season. That's something that's very bizarre to me, that's even an issue, because owners are not pushing players to play when it's not safe. So players should not think that.
It's interesting hearing Blake Snell with the Tampa Bay Rays talk about it and saying that, I'm going to have to be quarantined with my teammates, not with my family. He raised some interesting concerns. I know you mentioned you actually have a plan of your own to reopen sports safely. You've got details ranging from what day-to-day operations would look like to what the postseason would look like. Give us some of the highlights of your plan.
Well, I think it starts with testing, and that's something that's important, that you have to know that you're going to have testing every other day at several times a week. Then you have to agree to contact tracing, which is not exactly something that all players love agreeing to. Then there has to be a change in how owners split revenue amongst each other. And that's not being talked about a lot, because you've got teams who get a lot of revenue sharing who aren't going to get that because local revenue is going to be so far lower than what anyone ever thought it could be. And then after that, you have to agree to certain protocols during the course of a game. It's not going to be the type of camaraderie that we always had during games where players are high-fiving and they're hugging and celebrating walk-off home runs. We have to be smarter, because if any player tests positive, that player will immediately have to be quarantined and removed from the game and from his team until he tests negative twice in a 24-hour period. And that's meant to stop the spread, because the one thing to keep in mind, we can't start a season if one positive test will end the season the way it did when Rudy Gobert tested positive in the NBA.
Do you think, David, ultimately both sides will reach an agreement? And what kind of lasting damage do you think this could have on the sport of baseball?
Well, I think it's critical to know that if the NBA, the NHL, and the NFL start playing, but Major League Baseball doesn't, and they stand up before the fans and say we could not come to an economic agreement, that is going to be very, very bad for the sport moving forward. What is more likely to happen is that if no sports come back, then baseball will not come back. And if one comes back, they'll all come back. I believe there will be an economic agreement, and I think that we can get through the health issues and the hurdles, but there still needs to be a lot more testing available and the political cover that all the leagues need to use all these testing kits and make the public believe that there's still enough for anyone in the public who would need testing.
David Samson, thank you. You can read more about David's plan to reopen baseball on CBSSports.com. Thank you very much.